right. Welcome to the Chorus Weekly Briefing. Jim Benton, CEO of Chorus. Great to have everyone joining today. We're going to change it up a little bit in the spirit of ending Q3 and recapping some of the amazing data that we've shared over the last 12 weeks. I thought no better way than to understand the data than to invite our newest members of the team, Julia Cole and Amanda Jones, AEs within our strategic group and our corporate team, to help share the experience of what it's like to join a company during this era, all work from home, to connect with people, to ramp up and to actually close business. And for us, we've been fortunate. We've seen some record ramp here. But Amanda and Julia, welcome. How are we doing today?
Hi, Jim. Good. How are you? You can't be better after yesterday's quarter end, which was awesome.
Hey, yesterday was a bit epic. Yes, still feeling a little giddy, so I appreciate that. Amanda, how are you doing?
Oh, great. I have to say, I got a lot of coffee today, Jim, because last night was intense. Last deal coming in 20 minutes before midnight. So excited to be here. It's been an amazing quarter.
We were able to get some of the leaders together that I've not met even in the 6 months I've been here, over to my house, more than 6 feet apart. But we were watching and being on the phones and up until the end. Anyways, really appreciate that. So in terms of helping folks that are listening today to understand what it's like to join a company during this period, let's just start with Julia. Why Chorus? How did this come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came from a company called Lessonly. Lessonly is in the training space, and we leveraged Chorus a lot. I tell everyone it was my most used tool after Salesforce. And when you think of everything that's happening in these interactions, whether it's from a handoff or you're trying to capture what's really happening in a deal, what top reps are saying, and Chorus is so encompassing. And without it, I would not be able to run sales cycles or really interact and prep. So that's why.
Amanda, how about you? How did this come about? How did you end up joining Chorus?
Yeah, so I've actually was one of Chorus's first customers when I was at Outreach. And I've been following Chorus the last few years. And when I was actually laid off because of COVID from my previous organization, I made a list of the top companies I want to work for. And Chorus had to be it, because without Chorus at Outreach, I wouldn't have been able to listen to the top reps' conversations and be able to ramp up in record time there as well. And so I knew I had to be, at Chorus and working for you all. And, obviously I saw that you got hired and saw your background. So was super excited to join the team. And it was nice that I actually used to work with my previous boss. So it was just icing on the cake.
I think that's huge. I wanted to kind of tap into that a little bit as we think about the onboarding side and coaching side. One of the data points that we shared within this quarter is that we're starting to see the hiring trends back up. And this matches what we're talking about today as we've been expanding our own teams. But we're seeing that teams are starting to hire. And I was curious, even Julia, what's it like to interview? As people are starting to hire, but you're not getting to meet people face to face. What was it like to interview during this period?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, interviewing is tough remote. You almost have to make up for more emotions over Zoom than if you were in person. And funny story here, as I was going through the interview process at Chorus, which was very thorough, I had to do a role play, and I'm not good at role plays. And the first role play, I didn't really show myself. I think I got too focused, caught up on specifics. It just wasn't me. Luckily, Chorus, you guys gave me a second chance. And before I got on for that second role play, I asked for the recording. And that really started my experience here, right? There's so much to learn from, grow from, and without, that type of recording to learn from, it's so difficult. So what
was it? As you looked at the recording, Julia, what did you do differently? Or what did you learn by watching that role play?
Yeah, first of all, I did not do a great job at introductions. So I will never not do a good introduction ever again. And two, didn't dive in, like just strictly, it was a discovery role play. didn't dig deep, kept it really surface. And after listening to it, there were so many nuggets of gold that I picked up on. So that was really helpful.
I love it. I love it. Well, why don't we jump in? Amanda, I wanted to get your perspective, what it's like to join a company and to onboard. How do you learn? I know you've used Chorus, but just as speaking to other AEs, what's day one like? How do you connect? How do you get the feedback as you join and start to ramp up and start that journey?
Yeah, so my advice, especially in this day and age of what's going on with everyone most likely doing ramp virtual, is you got to be proactive, right? One thing that I did is I got with my boss and I said, okay, give me your top reps, and I just want to listen to a bunch of their calls. And I'm in, as you said in the beginning, I'm part of the strategic sales, so my deals are a little bit longer. So what I did is I would just listen to a couple reps calls, but throughout the sales cycle. Because I wanted to make sure that when I was onboarding at Chorus, that I was creating those good sales habits, the things that my bosses and of course leadership like you, Jim, want to see, and making sure that I'm, doing those motions. I use our mobile app a lot, and I'm so excited it's on Android and Apple because it was only on Apple for a little bit. So Android users were like, come on, bring it to Android. I would actually, go for walks with my dog and just listen to the calls. And, instead of just sitting there taking a bunch of notes, I would just listen to that audio over and over again. And I have to say that that contributed a lot to the way I would do my discovery calls and my demos, and ultimately how I close the deal in record time here. So I think you just got to be proactive, listen to the call, and ask the questions too. Any questions I had, or reach out to my solutions consultant, like, hey, I don't understand this or that. You got to be proactive, especially in the beginning, so you get those right habits in place.
Yeah. Julie, I'm curious on your side, how did you learn? How did you onboard?
Yeah, I think it's even to piggyback off Amanda, taking the proactive approach, but not only relying on your manager. So for example, one day I was feeling a little aggressive and I asked Tiago, our new CRO, to listen to my call and give me feedback. Feedback is great, but it has to have context around it. So when Tiago goes into the call and goes to an exact moment and is like, hey, we need to pick up on this next time, so impactful. And then on top of that, relying on peers. I think.
By the way, Julia, what did you learn? I haven't asked you. What was the feedback that Tiago gave you, or what was the key learning from that?
Yeah, he stopped probably 2/3 through and was like, at Julia Cole, I feel like we're feature selling at this point and we need to tie it back to their objectives. And he was so on point. And, that next call, I even started that call being like, hey, listen, I don't know what came over me. I sent it to our CRO. I got this feedback and I want to start this call off with what I heard on the last call, and let's focus on you versus me just show a platform.
Love it. That's great.
That's amazing.
Shout out to you, Tiago.
Amanda, how do you stay connected? You're in Austin. Our teams are, in different offices, and we're all remote right now. But what's it like? And maybe what was your first aha moment where you felt a belonging and a connection to the wider team?
Yeah. So I think for me, we did this really fun virtual event. Shout out to Misty and Nicole, who have been creating these, like they did an escape room last week. I think it's so important, as a company, when you're having to be virtual and we don't know when that's going to end, to just have like fun culture events. We did a wine tasting event, and it was fun even drinking with you, Jim, to figure out, what type of wines you like versus me. So I really enjoy that. Even my husband was like, what are you doing over there? I'm like, I'm just tasting wine with my new Chorus family. So it's just really fun. I think that that's so important. Obviously I think companies need to think a little bit more and get a little bit more creative to bring that connection. And besides just saying, oh, we got Slack, or, oh, we'll do Zoom meetings. Because I think Zoom fatigue is a real thing right now. But doing something fun like that was pretty cool, especially with a wine expert. I learned a lot that day.
Yeah, I'm curious to your perspective. You're out in Chicago. When did you have that moment where you're like, this is my team, this is my family, this is, what I want to be a part of?
Yeah, there's honestly a couple, so I'll try and keep this short. One, Amanda, I remember when we were onboarding together, and it was like 9:30 at night, we're on Zoom role playing because we had to present the next day. Another example is being vulnerable and asking your peers to listen to a call that you know wasn't the best. And being able to have the mindset of, I just want to get better. And then lastly, Jim, like the other day I was working out and it's like Jim Benton commented on your Chorus call. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And just knowing that we're connected, we can learn from each other. And it really forces you, in my opinion, to be the best version of yourself.
Well, look, I think we're all alone. Look, you know, you're in your homes, I'm in my home. We're all wanting to have this connection, and it is hard. I mean, I think it takes extra work. So I found it fun. It was my way to say, amazing job. I hadn't seen anything like that, you know, and share that. Let's jump in a little bit more here. So one of the key areas that is interesting about why we're all talking is that you've ramped. Both of you have ramped in this environment, work from home, pandemic, and you can list all the issues, but you've ramped faster than any other reps in the history of this company. I mean, amazing what we have seen. And I wanted to get a perspective from you. And one of the data points that we've shared in the past is that top performing reps tell stories. They tell authentic stories. You know, do stories work? Are you using stories? And maybe Julie, I'll start with you. You know, how is it that you've been able to ramp so quickly, and how are you leveraging stories?
Yeah, I think I've ramped so quickly because you guys have a very strong team in place. You know, we've essentially had a cheat sheet of how to be successful at our disposal. And one thing I picked up on, which was incredible, is that the reps are very confident with stories, right? And I think that goes a long way because they're part of the sales journey, not just sign a contract and good luck, but let's make sure this is a success. And when you're hearing directly from that voice of the customer of like, this is what we did, this is the impact we've seen, and be able to share that with other people, other companies that are going through the same thing is very impactful, in my opinion. So yes, I'm all about stories.
Julia, what's a story? What was one of the first stories that you heard that you've been able to share that's had an impact for our customers?
Yeah, a really great customer actually brought on consultants and launched this new force management. And they had reps all over the place and no way of knowing, are they adhering to this methodology? And the more conversations I've had from when I started, that's a common theme that I'm hearing, Jim, of just new force management, new methodology, and really making sure that we're consistent across the board. And when you can relate that back to people, they know they're not alone. And they know, you know, we're at the right place if we're talking about this.
Love it. I love it. And Mandy, what about you? What about in terms of learning the stories and being authentic on that and being able to connect with the customers in a really real way? How did you learn the stories and how are you leveraging stories?
Yeah, so, you know, when I was walking the dogs, listening to, you know, a bunch of calls, one of them is a top rep on my team. He was the one that brought in that deal at 11:47 p.m., which was why we were all like, oh my gosh, is it coming in? So one thing that he does really great is he tells really great customer stories. And being new, you know, obviously I have my own personal story from outreach of how I ramped really fast and how I was able to coach with my boss and do quicker one-on-ones. But I liked how he would mention some of our customers. But the point is, I liked how he related to outcomes. You don't want to just sit here and just ramble off random stories for your proof points. I mean, it's important to show proof points, but also it's more important, does that relate? So like one of our top customers that we have here at Chorus, they released a new product. And they saw that on the Chorus calls that reps were not mentioning that product at all. And so they were able to do some more enablement, some more coaching. And after that, they saw a huge increase in sales with that feature. So for me, if I'm talking to a customer that is releasing new products, or they're saying like, hey, you know, this is really important to us, they're not mentioning this a lot, that's when, you know, you would tell that story. And that's where it, you know, I think it's a really good social proof and gets them really excited.
Well, you speak about social proof, and when we looked at the data this quarter on it, it was interesting. Top performers include concrete social proof in 68% of stories. And concrete social proof means that we're referencing by name, you know, true success stories and in kind of rich details, not generalized. It's so 68% versus a 29% for an average performer. How do you learn the social proof when you're only, you know, you've been in the role for less than 60 days? How do you pick this up and how are you finding social proof to work in your own experiences, good or bad? Amanda, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so, you know, for my social proof, I think it's, you know, bringing the story home to how it relates to, I'm a rep that's selling to other sales teams, and I have a manager as well. So they're doing the same motions. And so my boss, uses obviously Chorus and uses the proactive alerts to his email, and he's managing a pretty big team. And like I said, I'm strategic, so I have, longer deal cycles. So he gets a quick email, shows everything about our team, where he needs to support. And I don't even have to raise my hand. He's like right there where I need him. And so I think, telling that story, especially to teams, who are telling me, I got to power my sales leadership team with more efficiency tools, or they need to coach better, or I'm afraid, reps aren't going to really take the coaching very well, or they need this or that, and I don't have any visibility. I think just bringing that home to like what matters to them and saying, look, this is how I did it. Here's my proof. But also, obviously giving other recommendations to, other customers. But I think that it's relatable. I buy from people where, if you're having a product, like you've used the product, right? So for me, like, that's why I like telling those type of social proof stories of like how we've done it and how we've increased our efficiency and productivity here.
How about you, Julian? How about in terms of using social proof? How is it working for you? And how do you make it real and authentic in your words that you're truly helping our customers?
Mm-hmm. I think partnering with the customer success aspect of it, right? So once you bring on a customer, what can you learn from the CS manager? And hearing it directly of what's the impact they've seen on quarterly reviews, and having that open communication, that dialect, so that you can keep learning, right? If you bring on a customer, a lot of times I get emotionally attached to them. I want to, are they hitting their goals? And when you can then bring that story back into real life, it's great.
Is there a story that you heard early on, assuming that we can share it here, but is there any story, Julia, that you first heard that just sort of, was like, aha, that's a story I want to share?
Oh my gosh, yes, because it's so relatable for my life. It's actually an internal story. So an AE was on the road pre-COVID with our VP of sales, going to an on-site and presenting to top executives. And very quickly, Dan asked the AE, hey, why would they choose Chorus as their partner? Basic answers that come, onboard quicker, whatnot, goes into Salesforce, static fields. I'm so guilty of it. Not a lot of detail. And then he quickly goes into Chorus and hits the impact. And he hears, this is actually ties back to the force management, Jim. They spent tons of money on this force management, and at the end of the day could not justify to the board if that spend is working. And so when you can quickly gain that type of visibility that quickly to help move a deal forward and to, coach and make sure that we're focusing on the customer, it's huge, unbeatable.
It's amazing. That's not even your story, and you're telling it as if it's your story, which I think is awesome. It validates the power of stories.
I think it's just because I've been there where, they ask me why they're going to buy, and I'm just scratching my head. And so it's, awesome.
I think it's funny. It's great to get a chance to share. It's sort of the end of the quarter looser session here. Why don't we end it on thinking about just the revenue side of, Amanda, you closed a deal in 21 days in a strategic side. Julia, you've had just an epic run coming on, and I wanted to get your perspective. In the period that we're seeing, it's taking more meetings to close deals right now. That's the data that we've been showing this quarter as we kind of recap Q3. So it's a 10% increase. We're having to meet more, both on the deals we win and lose. What's been different out selling right now? And maybe Julia, I'll start with you. As you helped our first customers have conversation intelligence, what was it that allowed them to trust you and to really move forward quickly?
Yeah, I think when I joined Chorus, I saw the talent that was on the team, and it really was obvious they're poster childs of Chorus, right? They're so tight on their deals. They're reviewing their calls to prep for their next meeting. They're keeping the customer first at all times. They're able to loop in, like Amanda said, our solutions engineer or my boss, Randy, when it's needed. And when you have that type of collaboration, you're prepped and you're looping in all the right people.
Yeah.
it's hard to beat that, and it's customer first. That's the bottom line.
Love it. Thanks, Julie, on that. And Amanda, how about you? In terms of building that trust and kind of ramping quickly so that you can have that confidence that you're truly solving problems for customers, how did you achieve that?
Yeah. So, for me, I had a really great process. Like, in the beginning, I was listening to all the calls. So I create those nice, good sales motions that I should be doing. And then when I started having my deals, I would actually go in and comment and be able to connect with my boss, like, hey, where can I do better here? And then he would obviously be listening to calls like, hey, you missed this, or give me recommendations and send another snippet of another good call for another rep. And more importantly,
Yeah.
I actually didn't really use Chorus in this way at outreach, but I align my solutions consultant. I'm able to quickly tag and get those technical questions. The other day, I aligned our customer marketing, Libby and Sophie. And then even the other day, I did a customer success call. I put Jordan on it, who is our leader of customer success, and was like, hey, this was a great call. Like, tell me, was it buttoned up? Did you feel like we were doing it in the right flow to your standards? So, I mean, for me, that's truly was the proof to like how I ramped up so fast and had success, and to piggyback off of Julia as well. So I think that's really important to have the team collaboration for sure.
In my days of carrying a quota, there was no conversation intelligence. So nobody was listening to the calls except for when we were in person or the few times when people would be joining. But when you think about today, and you're both been in it for 60 days, I'm curious, our data shows that 1/3 of all comments when people comment on a call are positive in sentiment. What's it like to have a peer comment? And are they commenting? Are you getting comments from your peers, not just leaders, about the interactions you're having? Julia, maybe what's your perspective on that? And
Yeah.
what are they? Do they get you excited? What kind of comments are you seeing?
For sure. So, well, I will be honest. Tiago, actually, that call he reviewed, he said at Julia, watch the cussing. And now I'm very aware, right? Because I said just a little, but my colleague, Cora, who just crushed this quarter, she's commenting this morning, and I'll read this. She's like, hey, Julia, great call. It's an opportunity right here to ask, tell me about your BDR AE handoff. And just little things like that, so helpful for that next interaction. So I love hearing from my peers, and it's just a good way to stay connected while being remote.
That's awesome. Man, how about you? How's that connection? Are you getting the commenting in a more strategic role? Do people engage on that?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, and my guys on my team and of all the reps on it, they're working their butts off at late. So I love that I'll get random comments at like 11:30 at night. And, it's nice because I can just see what they're writing in the email. But yeah, we do a lot of, collaboration, and it's important because what, I hear versus Katrina or Bo or if Devin, one of our new sales leaders, looking at it, I want their feedback. I'm eager for their feedback because the more I can improve, the more success we're going to have, and the bigger the business is going to grow. So, I definitely love the feedback. And I think it's important, you put your ego aside. I think someone has an ego, like they're not going to want to get those comments, but I feel like our culture here, we're just eager for it, right? We're like, comment, like, how about this? Even Julie and I will always send each other's calls, especially in the beginning, like, what do you think of this? Give me your honest feedback. So it's great.
I mean, I love it. We've been talking a lot about just an iconic team. It's a journey. It'll take decades. But I think that's it, that iconic team where people you have the trust, right? You know that the comments come from a great place, but that intense push to improve, to be our best, to find those winning behaviors. So I love hearing it. I know we haven't even all met together. And this is fun, just getting together. Maybe on the final comment, it is the first day of Q4 for many companies out there on the calendar quarters. What advice do you have? Maybe what are you doing as you think about kicking off a brand new day, a brand new quarter? What does that look like? Amanda, what's your thoughts on how do you kick off a quarter?
Yeah, so I think the advice I give to everybody out there right now, because we're, some people, this is their end of year, others maybe not, maybe their end of year is in February. Just be proactive, go after it. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm having that mindset of asking lots of questions, getting my answers, going after it. and closing up an amazing, 2020. This has been a tough year for everybody, but the momentum that's happening, especially in our space, it's been very, very exciting. I feel very lucky. So yeah, be proactive would be my one word of advice to everybody out there listening.
Nice. And Julia, how do you kick off a quarter?
Yeah, I think just staying authentic and truly bringing excitement to every call. This has been a really tough year. And if you can make that interaction over Zoom impactful, or even teach them something or be able to relate to them, that's what we need right now. And having the tools to do so is so important, but just not being a typical sales rep. Be yourself and just help and keep them your main focus.
Love it. Well, great to have both of you today. It's a little bit different than our standard way of doing a weekly briefing. Hoping everybody listening has picked up a few great nuggets here. This is us. This is Chorus. This is how we learn and grow and stay connected. So you can go to Chorus.ai to access this recording. And Julia, Amanda, thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day. Catch you online.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye.
Bye.